this video, we're going to talk about time signatures and ledger lines. Time signatures are these numbers that appear at the beginning of your staff, and ledger lines are these little tiny lines that extend a staff up and down. For time signatures give us some really important information about what's going to happen in each measure. Remember, our measure is the space between one bar line to the next. So the top number of a time signature tells us the number of beats per measure. In this instance, it tells us there's 4 beats per measure. That means there's going to be 4 foot taps every time before you hit a bar line. This one says there's going to be 3 foot taps. This one has 2. This one has 6. So there's 4 beats per measure in this instance. The bottom number tells us which note gets 1 beat. So if you want to think like a fraction, like a quarter would be on the bottom. So this would be a quarter note. So this means there's 4 quarter notes in this measure, or something equal to that. We'll get into that, how to use other notes to make all the rhythms possible. When we come down to here, we see there's an 8 down here. That means that there are 6 eighth notes per measure, or something equal to that. If I was to have a 2 on the bottom note, we could think of it like a half note. It'd be 2, it'd be whatever number on the top half notes per measure would be getting to be. So now for this measure, it says 4 quarter notes per measure. So that means we know that from our notes, when we looked at our notes lesson, that it takes 4 quarter notes to equal a whole note. I could put a whole note in this measure just as easily as I could write 4 quarter notes, and that would be fine. Now, I'm not going to have 5 quarter notes in this measure. I'm not going to have 3 because it has to meet exactly what's in the time signature. In this measure, I'm not going to have 4 quarter notes in the measure because that would not be 3. In this measure, I wouldn't have 3 quarter notes because it says I have to have 2. So that's an introduction to time signatures. They give us a lot of really good information, and you'll be practicing that as we go forward. Ledger lines, these little short lines that extend our notes. We couldn't fit all the notes on an instrument on one staff. Most instruments have 2.5 to 3 octaves, some even more. So in order to allow us to put all those notes on a staff, we have to have these little short lines to help us get these notes above and below the staff. So these are called ledger lines. They allow us to write notes above and below our normal 5-line staff. So those are ledger lines, and these are time signatures.